We can hang it on one person or we can hang it on 10, but what we better hang it on is that we got a problem.
I believe that the police chief should step down, at least from this investigation.
Directed this week at Houston Police Chief Troy Finner by criminal justice activists. It comes in the ongoing aftermath of the disturbing revelation that more than 250,000 criminal allegations over at least the last 8 years were administratively called and never investigated. 24 hours later, as his investigative oversight panel began its work, Mayor John Whitmire very publicly went to bat for his embattled chief on the issue of what Finner knew about the shelved cases and when he knew it.
He wasn't told about it. He discovered it in a unrelated discussion with his command staff and was shocked like all of us and instructed them to quit using it.
Panel, we also learned this week that the practice of abandoning particularly minor cases with no leads or evidence to follow goes as far back as 2014 and likely further. Holly, I know you've been watching this unfold. Any thoughts?
Oh, yes. I think this has really undermined the community's faith in the police force. And at a time when public safety is a high priority for Houstonians and people in Harris County more broadly, you know, we have all these victims who are wondering what happened to their cases. There's a story of perhaps one of these victims having committed suicide. That is a big concern. I don't know how Finner survives this. He's very likable. The community loves him, but you know, somebody's got to be held accountable for this, and for him to say he didn't know about it also poses questions about his leadership and his ability to communicate with his own staff. We'll see what happens. It is important to go ahead and let this investigation take place, and let's get all the facts, but it doesn't bode well for Finner.
Michelle Wynn not only has face-to-face conversations with people who have suffered crime, she tries to help them get past it. And so your input is particularly valuable here.
It's just incredibly frustrating. You know, I work at an organization, the Forensic Center of Excellence, where we work hand in hand with law enforcement to interview clients who have suffered sexual violence, right? And so that partnership, that community partnership, is a very important one and is done with very little resources on a nonprofit's end with a lot of work. I mean, there are many, many cases. So on top of being overwhelmed with the current cases, we're looking back at all those cases, and the resources and the staffing just isn't there. So this is going to be a very challenging time for police departments, for community partners, and especially the ones who really lose in the long run are the survivors of sexual violence. That's a work that I'm particularly interested in and passionate about. And when you're looking at 4,000 plus cases, on top of the frustration of the current cases of the clients who tell me, I don't know what's going on, it's been a couple of years, sometimes I talk to the investigators, and a lot of times those cases get dropped because of lack of evidence. It just mounts frustration. We know the police is trying to do its job, but we hope that, you know, there's going to be some resolution to this.
Gary, you know, what is it, T-minus 3 weeks as this scandal broke? Thoughts?
You know,
30 seconds.
Yeah, I agree with the concept that Finner's a good guy. He's doing the best he can, but somebody's responsible for doing this. And it happened somewhere in the command staff. So whoever was responsible for spiking cases needs to be terminated. If it's not going to be Finner, fine. Get rid of those people. But there's an underlying problem here that people don't talk about, though Bill did. We're significantly under-policed in Houston. We don't have enough patrol. We don't have enough investigators. So they're stacked up with cases upon cases. I deal with police detectives on a regular basis, and I hear the number of cases they're doing, and it's just incredible. And then you have the same issues. DA's offices understaffed for those. The courts don't move the cases like they necessarily should or could. It's a big problem. And so we've got to deal with it, which is going to be the next issue Houston deals with. How are we going to get our police force where it needs to be?
Charles, on his website, Urban Reform, posted Charles McClellan back in 2014 saying he had 20,000 cases they'd kicked to the curb. And he was pretty blunt about it. Charles.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to the point about the mayor standing side by side with him, I think there's something to be said about a mayor standing with his police chief for the time being to produce an air of confidence when confidence is at an all-time low. And then, you know, we'll get to the point of accountability and things like that. But to say that he was unaware of it, because we do know that it was discovered or acknowledged in 2014. Not only that, but they produced a report. They held committee hearings. The head of the new committee to review this was on council at that time and knew about it. And so people knew about it. It was widely reported. And so if the chief just forgot by the time he became chief, that's an acceptable answer. But to say that he didn't know, I would